Hey everyone, welcome back to the Weekly Fix. I'm Jacob,
And I'm Zane.
and today we have another fantastic episode. We do want to apologize for missing last week's episode. That was completely my fault, as I decided on Saturday, I completely forgot we were recording the podcast that night. I decided to rearrange my whole setup, and by the time it was time to do the podcast, I was not even close to ready. However, we are back, and I think this is probably going to be one of the best episodes yet. We have 2 episodes of Loki to talk about. We have some fun questions we're going to get into, but first, I want to talk about Loki because episode 4 was absolutely incredible. Zane, I think you can agree. Episode 4 is generally the best show episode in the Marvel franchise, and this one definitely did not disappoint.
Absolutely. I mean, every single episode or season of this, it seems like episode 4 for Marvel, they just turn up the stakes so incredibly high. Every single, I can't think of another season where episode 4 was not the best episode.
No,
What
they
if?
continually, it's just insane. Episode 4, I feel like, and I don't even feel like I was prepared for episode 4, even though I probably should have been. I just, was captivated the entire episode.
Well, and I mean, so I actually thought it was going to be a banger because even in my show notes as we were preparing for last week's episode, I said, "Hey, episode 4 is always a banger. It is always a banger with Marvel." And I was ready for some crazy stuff, but I was not prepared for the level of content that we got.
Yeah, it was insane. Backtracking a little bit, like I said, we did miss episode 3. Episode 3 was really a great episode. I think every episode of this show has been fantastic. I feel like episode 3 was really introducing Victor Timely to us. We finally got to see the next Kang variant, and I got to say, Jonathan Majors absolutely crushes it yet again. He's one of those actors that I think has already etched himself into that upper echelon of just some of the best acting we've seen in Marvel, period.
Yeah, I mean his range in this one singular character is on absolute full display, and it's awesome to see him. I mean, I was not expecting to see a Victor Timely from the 1900s or 1800. No, yeah, no, 1800s. Yeah. Um, so that's kind of like that was surprising to me because I've always known Kang as a futurist,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Way in the future, not someone who was born outside of their proper timeline. Um, and so it was really interesting to see him be so intelligent and so smart, so ahead of his time. Um, and you saw that was honestly even before they slipped him the TVA handbook. He seemed like he was experimenting at that moment, like he was already that intelligent. But this just really sped up the process as He Who Remains plan apparently was.
Yeah, it was cool, like you said, seeing that he really is a genius. He's not a genius because of any other reason than just he is. We saw him experimenting in, I guess that was like his little house from when he was a child. We get to see Ravonna finally back in action. We finally get to see Miss Minutes again. I gotta say, Miss Minutes, especially we're gonna get to it, but episode 4 really solidified her as I think one of the most terrifying characters in the MCU. Absolutely love what they are doing with that character. But tell me what you thought about Ravonna. What did you think of her reintroduction back into the Loki show? We hadn't seen her all season, and I think she did a really good job, and really is going to be a fun character to watch for the rest of the show.
So yeah, I can't talk episode 3 without talking episode 4 since this is a 3 and 4. So I'm just going to talk about them as a whole.
Yeah, go
But
ahead.
I'm really interested in the path they put her on. I thought the cliffhanger with them at the Citadel at the end of time, at the end of episode 3 was amazing. I liked the path that she went on episode 3 to get Victor Timely, and then to see that he betrayed her, and that she was one of the generals in the multiverse war. Um, and as we know, this is an Ouroboros snake eating its own tail thing. We're going to see that. We're going to see her pick. Like, we're going to see her fight in the multiverse war. And I love what they're setting up. You spoke on it with Miss Menace, one of the most terrifying, but she is 100% the most sadistic.
Oh,
Dude, I mean,
just that smirk. we'll just go ahead, like you said, we're gonna kind of combine episode 3 and 4 a little bit here. Just
Oh,
the smirk that she had on her face watching Ravonna kill all of Dox's agents,
dude,
and
it wasn't even
dude,
a smirk. It
no, she
was
was happy.
it was a full-blown smile with
Yes,
thrill and joy in her eyes. Like, man, we're gonna watch all these people die. It was. I mean, I don't. Most sadistic. Like, honestly, that scene. Because I don't think you can talk about these episodes without talking about that scene. But like, that's one of the most gruesome scenes we've seen in Marvel. Period. Period.
oh, 100%. And we're gonna get to another scene. Talking more about this episode, another extremely gruesome scene that I did not expect Disney to allow to come out in a show. With Victor Timely. We see him at the end of episode 4. We'll kind of just run through it a little bit. He volunteers because he thinks he is probably the most well equipped to go out there, mess with this temporal loom, try to get things back on track because he knows if something goes wrong, who can fix it? He knows he can probably fix it better than anybody else. As soon as he walks out those gates, he turns into spaghetti. I did not expect to see something like that, especially in a Disney Marvel show.
Well, so I'm not as surprised at that one because we've seen that twice before, exactly like that, essentially, with
Yeah, yeah,
Mister Fantastic in uh, Multiverse of Madness,
yep.
right? Turned into Plate of Spaghetti by Wanda. Spoiler alert. And then, if you haven't seen it, why are you listening to this? Anyway, and
You
then,
got a lot of catching up to do.
yeah, and then in Quantum Mania, I thought this was
Yep,
actually a wonderful callback to Quantum Mania
yep.
because that little machine that he built it looks a lot like Kang's chair and also his probability um, little orb
Yeah.
that powers it. And when Scott Lang got too close to that orb, he turned into the exact same animation in that probability storm. Um, so I thought that was really, really interesting because I literally just watched Quantumania like last week. So it was super fresh in my mind. And I was like, dang, that is like the exact same animation. And that was really cool to see.
When it's really exciting for, more of the adult viewers of Marvel, that they're not holding back as much as I feel like they may have in the past. It's finally getting to more of a, they're not afraid to show someone dying on the screen. They're not afraid to show like a gruesome scene, even though we didn't see Docs and the agents actually die. Just the implication, them implying what was happening. Sometimes that can almost be worse as like you're watching something, making your mind think about what's actually happening rather than seeing it, right? Because your
Well,
mind can go a million different directions.
I think that's a wonderful way to do it.
Exactly.
It's a great way to keep the innocence of the smaller audience that are like the people that still want to watch it but aren't as mature, but still show that intensity. Because I mean, this all started with talking about Ravonna. We see how much she just does not care about anyone but herself.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And talking about the ending of episode 3, really, really fun cliffhanger, and they've done a spectacular job of every episode having a good cliffhanger. I feel like it's kept me wanting more. Um, I'm not surprised at seeing what we did see with her being, probably the leading general of Kang's army, right by his side. I kind of expected that when Miss Minutes said, "You're going to be really mad with what I'm about to tell you." Obviously, it's kind of implying she was pretty high up and pretty close to Kang. But it is interesting, Miss Minutes was kind of holding that back the whole time. She didn't really decide she was going to tell her until Victor or Kang betrayed Miss Minutes, because we saw that really strange scene of Miss Minutes wishing she had a body so she could be with Kang. A lot of jealousy out of Miss Minutes. It just goes back to talking about how scary of a character that actually is. So it is interesting. I think Ravonna's character arc has probably already been one of the most fun to watch, even though she's only been in 2 episodes so far.
I yes, and going back to Miss Minutes, I mean, she was 100% only sold out to Kang and Victor until he rejected her. And
Yep.
once he rejected her, she was done. She was like, all right, well, guess it's me and Ravonna taking the reins.
Yeah, her switch flips very quickly. It takes about no time for her to decide, you know what, you don't want me, I don't need you either. Which is cool because she's not really a person, so she can she's not going to have that internal battle of, maybe they just were upset or anything like that. She is able to. She's AI basically, so she's able to just flip like that, which is really cool to see.
I, yeah, I mean, she's clearly not human to be able to watch whatever just happened to those to Doc's team.
Yes. We talked a little bit more about, how smart Victor is. It's really cool to see his interaction with Ouroboros or OB. Both of them just kind of being mesmerized by being in each other's presence. Like you said, they use that snake eating its tail comparison. It really 100% is. Because as far as Victor is concerned, he learned everything from OB. And as far as OB is concerned, he learned everything from Victor. Really liked that callback because if you think about it, just the timing of everything, Victor probably did teach OB, but OB is the reason Victor taught. So it is really interesting. So I'd like to hear what you think. Who do you think taught who? Do you think Victor taught OB or OB taught Victor?
So personally, I think I'm not 100% sure that is 100% the snake eating its tail with Victor and OB,
Okay.
because this is the point where Victor is introduced here to the scenario, and if he's introduced at this point, then I think we're gonna see another Victor meet a young OB, and
Okay.
because it doesn't make sense for this to be the initiation of this, because where did he get the time book or the TVA handbook? Like, it has to be earlier. So I think we're gonna see more Victor. I don't think he's gone.
Well, and that makes me happy because I really do like Victor. And, a lot of people don't realize there are some good Kang variants out there. And it definitely seems that's kind of the path Victor was on. He really was there to help. I did not get any vibes of him being like, you know what, screw all this. Now, maybe that could change. When you start getting a little bit of power, things can kind of fall over real quickly. But I did like this approach of Victor being, more of a helping hand rather than a villain.
Yeah, I just keep going back to episode 3. He was completely a con man, like 100% a con man. Like,
that's true.
Like I think they worked really hard to show that he's not a good person in episode 3. Now, the average person may like think, oh well, it's not that bad, but with anyone with like a little bit more standards, like that's pretty rough.
Oh, I agree. And if that was what they were going for, they definitely had me fooled because I loved Victor's character. I was actually sad when I saw him run out there and just get obliterated by all that radiation because just the way his character talks, the way he acts, you feel bad for him. You almost feel like he's been thrown into this dire situation. He really doesn't know what he's doing. He's kind of just, flying by the seat of his pants. I really like the character a lot.
I honestly did too, but I think they wanted to make sure that you understood underlining that we're showing you a good side of him, where he is working to help. He is he is in this dire situation. He does seem out of his element. He is excited to meet somebody who he like thinks is his hero, but he's at his core he's not a good person.
Which does make sense. I mean, you kind of see some things like you mentioned the con man stuff. But he does a lot of good things. We're just talking about when he gets captured by what's his name, Brad. Essentially, he's just trying to help his bodyguard get a nice cup of hot chocolate. He's just excited to have a cup of hot chocolate, and it's just those little things like that really do a lot for a character. When you kind of do hint at some innocence that he might have, I love when they do stuff like that.
And so it was like episode 4. I think he saw his path forward, right? I think he saw that this is his path to power, and that like he builds it. And so I don't think he's like just trying to I think he understands that he's going to be able to use all these people to get what he wants. Because if you think about episode 3, when they're on the ferry, he throws Ravonna into a boat.
He's ruthless.
like sweet little Victor, literally. And the only thing that we know that he was told was she wanted to reign with him.
Yeah, partnership.
With him.
Yep, he does. He said it, and as soon as he said that in episode 3, because he said it earlier when he was doing the con man stuff, he says, "Oh, I don't do partners."
Yep, I
As
don't do
soon as
partners.
Ravonna said, "I can't wait to be partners with you," I was like, "Oh, she's out." And you even saw Miss Minutes do her little sadistic smile because she
Yep, she is like,
knows he does not do partners. So that was music to Miss Minutes' ears. Someone that's already getting jealous of this. I guess not really new person because Miss Minutes knew who Ravonna was.
well, and she knew how like how connected they become because they probably do form a semi relationship.
I mean, at any point when you have someone that is as close to you, you're working together that much. Obviously, we haven't seen the full extent of that, which I think we will get to see some more of it. I think you, like you mentioned, we'll get to see some of that stuff. I'm sure they have had some moments, dire moments where they both fully relied on each other, and that's when a lot of type of relationships really get strong.
Yeah, it's through challenges and through experiences that are tough that really you form a stronger bond.
Yeah, which is really cool to see. We finally got some more answers. We got to see who pruned Loki, which was cool to see that it was just that was a sketchy, not sketchy, a very confusing scene for me because I was like, oh wow, so we're really seeing the culmination of everything right now. We're basically seeing episode 1 replay back from another point of view. So what did you think about Loki being the one that pruned himself?
I love it. I think it's a perfect callback to the first episode is named Ouroboros. This is the snake eating itself. He saves himself. I love that scene though because he was hesitant to do it, and I don't know if
Yep.
that's because he knew how much it hurt, like if it was painful, or like I don't know, or if it's just like, oh man, should I really do this? It's like, am I gonna mess it up with somebody else that's supposed to do it? But I really liked it.
Yeah, he really just grabbed the bull by the horns and said, "I guess I got to do this right now." And it was kind of, like I said, really kind of crazy chain of events that we saw in episode 4, with just everything kind of coming to a you know, full conclusion almost, except with that ending. That ending was probably, I'm gonna say, maybe the biggest cliffhanger Marvel has done, probably since Infinity War. Um, So, what did you think about the ending? What's some theories that you've been thinking about? Anything that's stood out to you about the ending? I'm excited to hear what you have to say about it.
So I think the ending bodes perfectly for what we've been talking about in our previous episodes. That this is the culmination, the start that ties everything in the multiverse together. I think this is the moment where it completely breaks loose. This is the start of the multiverse war. This is what is going to lead into Deadpool 3. This is what's
Yep.
going to lead into King Dynasty. And I think this is the crux. I do have some theories. Earlier in the episode, they had to reboot the system. They killed Miss Minutes. But when they before that, Miss Minutes hacked all the temp pads and locked them all out.
Yep.
So they don't have any temp pads except one, and that is He Who Remains temp pad, which is with Sylvie. So
Yep.
I think she has the option. Like I don't think Miss Minutes can shut that one down. So I think that she may have the option to save everyone in that room, and that may be how they escape the explosion. That's one of
It's
my
gonna
theories.
Okay. It's gonna be interesting to see, right? Because I've been reading a lot of stuff. I see a lot of different opinions on things. I really don't know what they're gonna do. I really don't know how important they're gonna make this temporal loom explosion be. Because in theory, correct me if I'm wrong, that should be just about the world essentially pruning itself, in a sense, correct?
Honestly, I'm not positive. I don't know.
And I
I
think
mean,
that's probably one of the most fun parts right now that we don't know really. Literally, when that episode ended, I texted you. I said, "What just happened?" Because I have
yeah,
no clue. I don't think really anybody knows what just happened. Now, maybe there's some people out there that might be more educated on the subject, or obviously the people that wrote the show know what's happening. But I really don't. I feel like they gave themselves a template to do whatever they want to right now.
yeah. Like if this is the complete reset, the reboot of the MCU, like this could do it. I don't. That's not what they're gonna do here. Like this isn't the reboot moment. Um, but this is what leads to it, I believe. If they do it. Um,
I gotta agree with you because I don't see them rebooting the MCU in a show just
No,
because
they
this
can't do
show,
that.
unfortunately, it doesn't have the eyes on it that it should. This show should be being watched by every Marvel fan because it's that good. I do think this is a perfect opportunity to start the reboot. I think this is a chance to, give us that are really diehards, that are really watching everything that Marvel puts out. This is our chance at seeing, when they do officially reboot it in maybe the next movie, or if they even decide to reboot it, that's still all up in the air in general. This gives us a little more background, so when it does happen, we might be a little more aware of what's going on just because we've watched all the shows, which I think is really cool. But I do think this is a really great start to if they want to do that.
Yeah, and reboot or not, this is a great start to the multiverse war and what's coming in Kang Dynasty and Secret Invasion. Because I mean, not Secret Invasion, good lord, Secret Wars.
Hmm.
We know Secret Wars is a multiversal movie. Like it's
Yeah.
the culmination of the multiverse saga, which is what we're currently in. So it like this, I think this is what they have needed all along. I think they needed something like this to set the stage for everything that's going to come. And there's been some rumors that the Marvels is going to have some pretty big multiverse tie-ins. And I don't think it's coincidence that Loki episode 4 has already released the week before that releases.
Which, to be honest with you, I've seen some of those things too about the Marvels, and I was not excited for the Marvels. I know you've been a little more excited about it than I
Oh
was.
yeah.
I feel like this was just going to be another one of those movies that kind of just comes out, it comes and goes. But with some of these rumors coming out that it might be actually a very important film to what we're getting in the future of Marvel, it's got me a lot more excited. And I was thinking about skipping this one at the theaters and just waiting a little bit longer till it drops on Disney Plus because we know every movie is coming to Disney Plus at a crazy rate. I don't think I'm going to be able to wait for this one. I think it's definitely been something that, got me more excited than I previously was, which is something that none of the trailers or none of the anything like that we've seen have been able to do. This show has kind of been what's done it for me. And I think that just goes to show how good this show is.
Well, I've been excited for Captain Marvel or the Marvels since pretty much Miss Marvel because that show is so much better than I ever expected. Um, and I know you haven't watched it, but
Nah, that one I did skip.
because I thought it was going to be terrible. I did. I thought it was going to be terrible, and it was fine. The actress I enjoyed. I thought she played her role great. And it does take a terrible turn midway through, but it fixes itself and then has a lackluster finale. But the start, like the character's a good character, and that's I'm not recommending anyone out there to like go watch Miss Marvel right now. That's not what I'm currently doing. But it is better than I expected.
Well, and it's going to be cool because we'll get to see what's her name from WandaVision. We're finally
Yeah,
get to
Maria
see,
Rambeau.
yeah, Maria Rambeau. We're finally going to get to see her a little bit more, which was an interesting character in WandaVision. We really didn't get to explore what she's capable of at all in that show. So I think this will be cool to see. But like I said, it's got me more excited. I know you're very excited for it.
I'm just a Marvel junkie, so
Yeah, you're like, which you're a big Star Wars guy too, but I would say we're probably flipped for both. I think I get as excited for Marvel as you do for Star Wars, and I get as excited for Star Wars as you do for Marvel.
I'd say that's probably accurate.
Because so anything Star Wars comes out, I'm watching it as soon as I possibly can because that's just my thing. But yeah,
And I just
I
finished
think
the Bad Batch last week, so
yeah, see, so that's see, you guys are explaining. See, I haven't watched Miss Marvel. There's quite a few shows that I've not caught up on Marvel. But it's really we're both, which is good for the podcast, I think, because those are probably two of arguably the biggest IPs out there.
yeah, that are currently successful and established, I'd say.
Yeah, so I would say that's probably good for us being able to bounce stuff off of each other. But if you're anything like me, I think you are enjoying Loki a lot. I think there's
Oh
a
man.
lot of cool stuff coming. I know you said
So
that was
so
one
what
of
it,
your theories. Do you have any other
yeah,
theories you wanted to share?
so they did reboot the TVA with Miss Minutes, so magic is on the board.
Yes.
So they do have the option to use their magic. I don't know how you magic out of this. Um and I also don't know what the effects are. I think that they so first theory is the Tim pad that Loki who remains is online
Mm.
and they get out. Second mad is they use some sort of magic and allowed to sustain themselves. And then the third one, which I think is most like logical, is that the energy sends them multiple versions of themselves all the way throughout the multiverse. I think that's what's
That
happening. I think
I
that's
think
what
that
happened
is
to
too.
Victor. I think that's what happened to Victor. I think we are going to see multiple Victors thrown throughout all timelines, and I think we're going to have this crew thrown all the way throughout the timeline. I don't know if you know this or not. I think I told you, but there's rumors that Owen Wilson is reprising Mobius in Venom 3. And I think this may be how that happens.
Yeah, that was something you told me about, which again, something I haven't watched. I have not watched the Venom movies. But I do agree with that. I think that is the most logical theory. Because there's a lot of things that I've seen a couple of clips on X now, people talking about, oh, we haven't seen this yet from the trailers. There's a lot we still haven't seen, and there's a lot we still haven't heard people say, which is crazy to say with only 2 episodes left.
Well,
That
and
there's a
I've
lot we haven't seen.
really tried to stay completely away from all of that because I do like to like it's really easy for me to jump on the bandwagon with somebody else's thoughts. So like,
Right?
I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely it. But then you kind of stop thinking for yourself. So um, I've really tried to like kind of stay away from any theories. So I don't have any backing from any of those. Or maybe somebody out there is backing that, but I don't know.
Well, see, that's kind of I do a similar thing with Star Wars. I got to the point with Star Wars where I was getting upset when other people's theories weren't happening because I thought they were such good ideas. So when I stopped doing that with Star Wars, I was like, "Wow, this is a lot better than I remember." I'm enjoying Star Wars again, right? So it
Yeah.
is better to just kind of let it play out, I would say.
When I
But I
think
do
you can,
like. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I said I think you can nitpick anything to death and like find fault in most projects, um, and that's what a lot of people turn to is they don't see the good, they only see the negative. It's amazing how many people have talked like absolutely like completely poorly about Ahsoka, said it's not only not good but it's bad, and I'm like, man, that's crazy.
Dude, and don't even get me started on that because it seems like nowadays, if Luke Skywalker doesn't show up and he's not just like force throwing literally everyone across the room and crushing droids, that it's not good.
It's
And
not good
that
enough.
has absolutely drove me insane because as much as I love that stuff, we've seen Luke's story. We know what Luke does, right? Sure, after episode 6, there's a whole lot of his life that he has to live. But what is he did what he was set out to do in episode 6, right?
Yeah,
Let's get some new stories. And that's what I'm excited for with stuff like Ahsoka. Even though we know the characters, you can use characters. Use however many characters you want. You can bring Luke back, right? But give us some new stories, which is what I'm excited about with Star Wars. Is we got a whole bunch of new shows coming. We got some new characters we've never met before. I thought Andor, we've talked about it before, is the best Star Wars show, and we've not really seen much of him as a character. That was a brand new story. And I think
yeah,
that's what speaks so well to, letting these writers just write what they want to write. I mean, they're good at what they do. There's a reason they're in the position they're in. So don't even get me started on like the people hating to hate. I
yeah,
feel like that has been such a problem. It's with Marvel too. Marvel probably
yeah.
worse than Star Wars.
I
Um,
would say it is worse just because there's more. I'd say that first off, like there's more ex-user fans, right? Like there's more Twitter fans of Marvel than there are Twitter fans because I think it is a little older fan base for Star Wars, like the diehards.
yeah, for sure.
The but like the Marvel, like you know, the people who grew up with the Marvel MCU are like 30 now, so they're all very engulfed in the social media age. But I kind of shared some of my theories. Do you have any theories of what's happening there at the end?
I I've really been thinking about it, and I've tried to come up with some, but I just keep coming back to the point that I'm stumped at what's even happening. I do think I've seen I've thought about like this could be a reset in a way. We talked about, not even a reboot. I don't think that this is a reboot. I've kind of seen this as a reset of similar to how season 1 ended, where Loki
Okay.
gets like ripped back to before, he starts getting pulled through time and all sorts of stuff's happening. I could kind of see them going in that kind of direction with almost time resetting, but not in a full reset, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Um, I like that theory a little bit, but I think the most logical one is the one you said about, multiple versions of them getting pulled through time. So, you know, that's just been my thought process. I could see them kind of this explosion resetting time a little bit, and
Yeah,
maybe Loki coming to a situation where he's like, "Oh shoot, this is really really bad." As if he didn't think it was bad at all to begin with. I could see him kind of maybe having to go through some different things, and the reason why I think Loki is going to be even more important now. He doesn't he shouldn't have any other variants of him out there.
yeah, they
He
should all be dead.
yes. So that's why I could see him kind of being the guy that has to go back in time. He's got to go find Mobius because where's Mobius, right? I could see
Yeah,
episode 5 being a lot of, all right, I got to go find Mobius, right? I found Mobius. I got to go find Sylvie. Got to, you know what I mean? Kind of him running through time, going through different, timelines and stuff like that. Just trying to get everyone back together so they can try to fix what's happening. That's kind of my biggest theory is what's going to happen.
I just don't know how they do that with only 2 episodes left.
Exactly. That's the other thing. I don't know how. I don't know. Has this show been confirmed for a season 3, or is this?
The showrunner said that this season will not end on a cliffhanger.
Okay, so there's that then. So I feel like a lot is going to have to happen in these next 2 episodes, which we talked about the
Yes.
pacing a lot of the show. Fantastic. Pacing is great. I think these next 2 episodes are going to be crazy.
Okay, so part of these theories come from what the loom is, and so we get a little bit of explanation from Victor of what the loom is in his presentation. Why don't you describe to our listeners what the loom is even doing? Because I know a lot of listeners don't even like understand. Like, yes, we're in the temporal room, but what is that object? What is it doing? Why don't you break it down for us?
You might be better equipped to talk about that than I am
Well,
because,
I'm curious to hear your take because like I have like an opinion, but I don't know
well, to be
exactly what
honest,
it's doing.
I haven't really even thought about what it's doing. Maybe that's just poor, watching on my part. I feel like I've kind of looked at the loom as just like, you know, just something that's holding these. I don't even know. It's just such an unknown thing. I feel like this show has been. I really haven't known what's happening the entire show. I feel like every episode something's happening. I'm like, didn't see that coming. Oh, didn't know that could happen. Right? So I don't even know really. The loom is just kind of like it's been there. Obviously, it's important. Do I think it's as important as they're playing it off? I do not. I
Oh,
do
okay.
not think it is as important as they are making it to be. I
So
do have
so
a theory that this loom is another thing that a Kang has come up with that is a failsafe. It's a way
okay.
to get people off of his tail almost if things start happening. You
Hmm.
know,
Okay.
the loom needs fixed, the loom needs fixed. I almost feel like it's a big bad wolf thing where I'm
Big
not
red
doing
herring.
anything. Yes, it's the loom. I've been I haven't heard anyone else say that, so maybe that's a completely wrong and out of their thing. I just feel like they're making it seem like too big of a deal.
Okay. Um so my explanation to the listeners for what it would be doing is, he talks about in his presentation that it takes time and it converts it to energy,
Mhm.
and so this is not only the power source for the TVA and what runs all of their equipment is using all these time strains, but I think what it's doing is it's collecting all of the time strains that are created raw and kind of threading them into a rope. Essential, like if you have a lot of twine and you thread them, like that's how you get a rope string,
Mhm.
and it's creating the sacred timeline. And because there's so many branches that are happening now, it's getting overpowered, and there's not enough room to thread all of them together into a coherent story. Because we know at the episode 6 of season 1 that he said, "Hey, I can make you win this battle. You both can reign together." Like,
Mhm.
um, so I think this is his device in which he writes the sacred timeline.
I mean that makes sense. Like I said, I really don't know. A big reason why I've been thinking about that theory of it's not as important as it is it reminds me a lot of in season 1. I forget what their names were. They were the gods or the watchers that
Oh,
were
the
originally.
timekeepers.
Yes, the timekeepers. I almost feel like this is that. but almost for what the timekeepers would have been if something failed. If someone found out about the timekeepers, right? What's my next thing to fall back on?
Okay.
It's this temporal loom, right? That's
Okay.
kind of the theory I've been running with in my head of because I just don't see Kang leaving something so important for really just about anybody to go out and mess with. Anyone can throw one of those suits on and go out there and start changing stuff with the temporal loom. That
Well,
don't sound right to me.
they did have to scan his aura to get it
That
to unlock the
not
doors.
originally though. That was only
Not
because it got
originally.
locked the first time.
That's correct.
So maybe I don't know, just something about that loom. I'm not buying it. And maybe
Okay.
we could look back at this episode in a couple weeks and be like, man, I was a big idiot. It really is that important. But it just something about it. I don't know why. I just have that feeling in the back of my mind that I don't know that Kang would leave something so important so freely to be messed with by anybody because no one's had a problem getting into that room. Obi opened
That's
up the
true.
doors to get into that room as soon as he wanted to,
That's right.
right? He was able to open up the doors to go straight out there the first time. So I just I don't know. If it seems like something that important would be a little bit more locked up and a whole lot harder to get to
No, I
than
mean,
he's allowed it to be.
but it is the TVA. Like, it is his like place.
It
It
is.
should already like that is already the failsafe. That's like putting a safe inside of a safe.
Yeah.
So
I know. Listen, I just something about it. I don't know. Something seems
no,
off
I
to
mean
it. I just
you could be right. And this show loves this. I mean, it loves pulling from season one, right? When Sylvie killed He Who Remains, what did he say? I'll see you soon.
yeah,
And
yep,
when Ravonna walks through the door in this episode as he's leaving, what he said, "Hey, see you soon." Right?
yep.
I think they're so it definitely could be episode 4. We got to see that the timekeepers were fake. Episode 4, we get to see that the loom is fake. Maybe they're just following. Maybe this is even a meta snake eating its tail
Yeah, it's
story.
just what obviously I would nothing would make me happier than to come back to this episode and be like, oh, Jacob might have been the first person to ever come up with that theory. I'm sure someone else out there has maybe had. I haven't heard anyone else say anything about that, and that's just something that's been in the back of my head. This just seems too easy to mess with, and honestly, maybe we see all these temporal looms out there. You see all these timelines moving. That could be very important, but I almost feel like that explosion was just kind of another failsafe, like, all right, let's kill everybody associated with this TVA or something like that. Let me get back in charge of what everything and just redo everything, because we know Kang is not afraid to wipe everyone's mind and just restart.
That's right. Maybe this
So
is the memory wipe portion. Maybe
exactly, this
that's
is
the
his
memory wipe
restarting.
device
Yep.
thing. Okay, so one other thing. There's two things I wanted to mention that I really want to talk about. I know we may be going a little long here on Loki, but what do you think Ravonna's? Now you asked me like how I thought about her, but she got pruned. What is her path
Yes.
forward?
I don't know. It's kind of going to go. Are the people getting pruned still going back to that same, middle ground kind of where we
Oh,
saw? I forget what the beast's name was. It Abeloth or
Eliath.
something.
Eliath.
Goliath. Goliath. Are they still going there? Is that
Yeah.
still a thing with all that's happening with the temporal loom?
Yep. Still going to the end of time. That's where they
Yes.
go.
Is that still a thing? If it is still a thing, is she? I mean, is Abeloth or Eliath still out there? Because we know Loki and Sylvie kind of tamed him so that they could go through him. Has that
Yeah.
worn off?
I'd say.
I really don't know where her character. She's not done. I know she's not done.
Yeah, she's
But
coming back to lead those armies.
yes. So I don't know really what they'll do with her character. Maybe she could get to the end of time and she has a way of getting back regularly. And guess who she brings with her? All the people stuck in the end of time. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Loki fight a bunch of himself, like he kind of did a little bit in the episode in season 1. But
Yeah, we
only
get to see
this time he doesn't. Yes,
President
we see
Loki with
President
no
Loki.
hand.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised if we see them fight each other again.
Okay.
We know Loki kind of has a good relationship with some of them now, but there's a lot of people out there that we probably didn't even get to see. So I wouldn't be surprised if the army that she leads is the end of time army.
I mean, that's actually a really good thought. I love that. Um, and I really don't have anything else to add to that. I mean, yeah, I think she's coming back, and I definitely think that she's leading an army. I love the input. I didn't even think about leading like a Loki army. Um,
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome to think about. But I, and it like plays very well to the show.
yeah. I think the theme of the show it would just be a perfect ending, really. I have heard a lot of people, talk about the ending of the show. Loki will be done with Marvel and the MCU. I don't know
Mm,
if I agree with that fully. I've seen a lot of people starting to think that this will be the last we see Loki is in this show.
I don't think
Um,
so.
I don't think so either. I think he's still going to play a very important role with
He'll be
some
in
movies and
Secret.
stuff.
He'll be in Secret Wars for sure.
Well, I mean, Secret Wars, we could say just about anybody is going to be in that thing. I mean, I feel like every week there's a rumor coming out that, oh, guess who's going to be in Secret Wars? It's Chris Evans. Oh, Robert Downey Jr. is coming back too. So,
Yeah,
man,
Chris Evans as Captain America and the Human Torch.
exactly. So, I don't know what's going to happen with that show. I wouldn't be surprised, though. I don't think it'll happen. But I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Loki again until Secret Wars after the show. That's something I think is very realistic.
That's possible. That's possible. If there's not a season 3, I don't see him showing up in any other movies. And well, except for maybe King Dynasty.
Potentially, yeah. So man, Loki is in. Marvel's really picked it up. We've also got some, speaking of Marvel, got some fun news about the Daredevil show.
Oh man, the
I know
best
you're very
best
excited.
news
So
of the
let's hear it.
week.
Tell me how excited you are about Daredevil's new news.
So we talked about Daredevil getting their writers fired and everything that they've done they're scrapping. Well, it just got leaked or announced that the Dario Scartapen, the producer for The Punisher from the Netflix series, is going to be the showrunner. And if anyone's listening and doesn't know what showrunner means, it's the overall um, in charge of everything, in charge of directors, in charge of writers. He is the Kevin Feige of the show. So that is great news. Bringing somebody back from the show that was so successful, and the Punisher show was just as good, if not better, than Daredevil, in an isolated. Because I mean, Punisher coming into Daredevil season 2 is what made season 2 so good. And then so he's coming back, and then we've been so hyped about Loki, and Loki's directors Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead are also signed on to be in the part of the creative team, which is just so good. So they're finally saying, "Hey, let's get the people involved that are being successful that make sense," and I love it.
Well, and it's really great too because what have we heard a lot? We've heard that this Daredevil is kind of supposed to be a spiritual successor to the previous show. It's supposed to kind of be like almost like another season of it with some, not exactly, but some callbacks to it and things like that. And I don't think there's really a better way to do that than bring someone else that was so closely associated with that era of Marvel. So I think that is going to be really good. Another news we got, I don't know if you heard about the new Thor movie, but
I did.
we've heard
I did.
Taika Waititi will not be back apparently. What do you
Yeah,
think about that? Because I know you really liked Love and Thunder, which he directed. So how do you feel about that Thor news?
really liked. I enjoyed Love and Thunder. It could have been the world's better. I liked it. I really liked it compared to everyone else.
Mhm.
But I'm fine with that news. He did a great revitalization of Thor in Ragnarok, a top 10
Yeah,
MCU film. But I'm not tied to him. His comedy and his storytelling is going to age out of Thor, and that's what I hope. I hope we get to see. And everyone was saying Thor should have got over by Love and Thunder, like he should have been a healed man, and I disagree. When you've lived 1,500 years, and in the span of 8 years, you lose your brother twice, your mother, your father, and you lose everyone. Like
Asgard.
and you lose Asgard, and you failed. Like you were the protector. I think it's perfectly acceptable to be broken for 2 years. Like, I mean, that's like a month of his life. I mean, people lose their dogs and they're broken for longer in comparison. So I think the critique that he should have been, he should have been healed and fine by that, and it's ridiculous that he's dealing with these things. I actually completely disagree. I think he should be broken, but I am hoping that we get a mature. He is healing, and he doesn't have to be completely like, healed all the way, but like we get a more mature Thor that's fighting Hercules. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, I completely agree with the whole healing thing because, like you said, to lose everything essentially, he lost everything in that amount of time. He's never experienced loss like that ever. So
Ever.
I completely agree. He should not have been healed. I hated that argument as well. I hated people saying, "Oh, it was too." I think they did a great job showing, that psychological damage that someone can experience. Absolutely love that. And I do like what you're saying about him being a more mature. I think they did a really good job of kind of setting that up with Gore's daughter. He is
Yep.
protecting her now. So that piece of his life that he has lost, that family that he's lost, he kind of just got a little bit of it back with Gore's daughter. Even though that's not actually family, it is to him now.
Yeah,
right?
it's going to be for sure.
Exactly. So I think they did a really good job setting up Thor potentially being even more mature, which I really like.
And it's
I'm
even
really
more
excited.
family to him because that's his actual daughter in real life.
Exactly. So the acting is going to be there, right? He's going to really, really care about this girl.
Absolutely.
So that's really cool. I really like, obviously we saw Hercules at the end of Love and Thunder. Really like that Marvel character. I would love to finally get to see some more of him. He's just cool. I mean, who doesn't like Hercules? Just some big brute of a guy. So I think that would be a really, really fun fight too, because
Yeah.
two
And
big dudes going at it is always fun to watch.
And Brett Goldstein is just an amazing actor.
Yes.
From one of my favorite TV series of all time, Ted Lasso. If you haven't watched Ted Lasso, hop on the Ted Lasso train. It's amazing. If you care about comedy and sports at all, Ted Lasso is a must-watch.
See, that's a show I haven't watched because I think it's only on Apple TV, right?
Yeah, it's on Apple TV.
Yeah, see, I don't have Apple TV, but my sister absolutely loves it. She rants and raves about it. Her boyfriend loves it. So it's definitely something I've been recommended. But man, it's got to get off Apple TV. I need it to be
It's
on
not going to. It's exclusive.
I know. And Apple TV, we don't talk about a whole lot other than Marvel. They have some good shows on there. Obviously, I haven't watched them, but I hear a lot of good things about a lot of good shows on Apple TV. It sounds like they do a good job of getting people on that platform.
I love it. They have some great shows. I've never seen anything, but
yeah, I mean, just from word of mouth. I mean, I've heard of a few good shows. Can I name them? No, but I feel like there's a few that I've heard people tell. Oh, it's on Apple TV. I'm like, oh, okay, another show that I can't watch. But for those people that can, that's great for them.
yeah, I watched quite a few of their shows, and they're all very high quality, very good. It is limited. They don't have the category that everyone else has, the category, the catalog, which is good. I mean, quality over quantity is always preferred.
Oh, 100%. And I think we talked about it a lot, bringing it back to Marvel. It seems like Marvel's finally starting to understand that. I feel like they were putting out a lot of stuff, and it was just the quality wasn't there. So finally seems like they're catching back up on themselves. They're starting to realize, let's just put out good stuff rather than a lot of stuff, which is exciting. So, next portion of the show, I think is going to be a fun time. You guys have been listening to the podcast. Haven't really got to know us a whole lot, and I feel like the best way to understand who we are and what we like and stuff is going to be some questions that we have about Marvel, Star Wars, that we're going to ask each other. Last week, if you guys watched the last episode, we talked shortly about my top 3 Marvel characters, which for me are Spider-Man, Moon Knight, and Loki. Right at the moment, obviously that's subject to change all the time because there's some really, really cool characters in Marvel, and the more we get, the more I get excited for different characters. But I'm going to ask Zane today. He has had about a couple weeks now to really think about his top 3 Marvel characters. Let us know why they're his top 3. So Zane, why don't you start us off with number 3? We'll work our way down the list that way. Who's your number 3 Marvel character?
So I have my number 1 is a lockdown.
Okay.
And once you go to number two, it gets a little, oh man, it could be this one, it could be this one. And then I had six people that I wanted to put at number three. I was like, I
So you
don't know
had
who to
some real
put.
decisions to be made when putting this list together.
I did, yeah, and I really put a lot of thought behind it. But number three to me is Wolverine. Um,
Okay.
Wolverine is one of my absolute favorite from my childhood growing up. I loved all of the X-Men movies, and then Hugh Jackman, one of the most perfect castings that have ever been. So to see a live action Wolverine, that really was before the MCU,
Yeah.
really, that really is special to me. But I also am a comic fan, so I'm not just a TV junkie. I also love the comics, and my favorite comic run in Marvel is Civil War. And in Civil War, you see all the superheroes fighting over whether they should be registered or not. But and what happens is some low level heroes are filming a TV show about catching villains, and they get a tip that this one villain, hey, it's a super easy pick off, like go pick him up. Well, they go to capture him, and he's like a level 5 mutant. And he explodes an entire town and kills like 500 kids in a school, and just like it's complete devastation. That's the crux that kicks off the fighting between everyone. And while everyone's so worried about should we register, should we not register, he's not registered, let's go get him, Wolverine is just hunting that villain down and killing him. Like, that's his whole job. Like, he doesn't care about the politics, he doesn't care about that. He just cares that 500 kids lost their lives.
Hmm.
Those parents lost their children. I'm gonna make it right. And there's so many, like, you get to see, like, there's comic strips where in the villain explodes. I can't remember his name offhand, but and you get to see Wolverine like lose his skin, lose his muscle tissues, lose his like ligaments, and then like straight down to a skeleton. And then the next few panels are him regenerating all of those like back to normal, and he like looks at him and says, "Is that all you got?" Um, and so like he's just such a cool character, and I cannot wait for Deadpool 3 to see Hugh Jackman in the official Wolverine costume alongside Deadpool with two perfect castings. That is going to be a top 10 Marvel film of all time.
Well, cool thing about Hugh Jackman, he actually holds a Guinness Book of World Record. I think it's for longest, run of a single character
Yep.
ever
Hmm.
with Wolverine. I mean, he's been Wolverine for years now. I didn't realize when I was listening to another podcast I like to listen to. It's called Collector Heroes, where it's just a guy that gets together a bunch of collectors and just talks about their collections and stuff like that. And one of the guys was a Spider-Man collector, and they were just talking about stuff. And they were talking about how when Tobey Maguire came back, he actually took that Guinness World Record back from Wolverine because it's been a while since
Oh yeah, since Logan.
Hugh Jackman. Yeah, so currently Tobey Maguire does hold that record, but he's about to lose it because Hugh Jackman's coming back in the next Deadpool movie. So that
And
is
I
a cool
assume for
little.
Secret Wars.
Yes, well, and then that's going to be interesting too, which I think he's been doing it longer, obviously. But Toby will try. He'll try to get a run at it again with Secret Wars if he does make an appearance. But yeah, Hugh Jackman, he'll probably hold that one probably forever. I don't know if anyone will
No,
have a run as a character as long as he has.
I don't.
But
I don't think
Wolverine's
they
great.
will. They yeah. So and it was really tough, but honestly, this came down to full character, not so between in every appearance. I love them, right?
Okay.
In movies, I love them. In comic books, I love them. And so like I didn't want to just be biased to the MCU because and just to say my runners up real quick, it's Rocket Raccoon, uh,
Okay. Love
Captain
that
Am-
one.
Rocket Raccoon, Captain America, Thor, Daredevil, and Star Lord. So those were my five runner-ups.
I'm just happy, to be honest with you. I was real worried that Cap was going to be in your top three. So I'm just very, very happy to hear he did not make the cut because, man, me and him do not get along. Not a
eh,
Captain America fan.
so I love the Captain America in the MCU, and he's just such a wholesome dude, and I
Oh,
love the
dude.
epitome of his whole like how just good he is as a good
Oh,
person.
no, I hate
Um,
it.
but there, I know you love the conflict, but so you'll love my two and one.
All right, well
But
let's go with number two. Let's hear who's number two on this list.
number two is Punisher.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I did not expect that from you at all, to be honest with you.
So number two is Punisher, and so what's really funny is I was going over these with my wife, and she goes, I really understand that because when you watch stuff, you really put yourself in the person's shoes,
Uh-huh.
and so many times I've been like, man, if that ever happened to you, I'm going full Punisher, like. Like I literally have said that so many times. Like, hey, like if this happens to you, we're going full Punisher. It's over. So,
Well, I at least love that you're honest about it.
yeah, like um, just I would hope that the Lord would grant me forgiveness in my heart, and that that my flesh would not take over, but as complete flesh, I would just go full Punisher and just end it all.
Okay.
But but his story is so tragic, and the fact
Yeah.
a lot of people love Batman because he's just a man, but he's really not. Batman's not a man because it's impossible. The Punisher is. And so this goes back to comic books being awesome, shows being awesome. Punisher, I just mentioned it, is one of my top 10 shows of all time, and it's maybe better than Daredevil, but the only reason Daredevil is even there for me is because Punisher's in it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the penny and the dime episode when he's on the rooftop talking about his kids. Oh man, it is just it's incredible. And John
Well,
Bernthal,
I was about to say, he's incredible. He is such a good. Every movie he's in, love it. I love the movie Fury. I think that
Fury's
is one of
wonderful.
the best war movies that's ever been made. Honestly, his character is great. He is just a great actor.
And he's also like even in like Ford versus Ferrari when he completely switches roles, and like
Yep.
he's wonderful. Walking Dead. I really can't think of a show where I saw him and I was like, man, he just didn't do as good this one.
Yeah, he's incredible. He is incredible.
So, and then to go back to a little bit more context for comic books, why I love him, in that Civil War run, Spider-Man has switched sides. So he comes out with Iron Man, and he announces his identity to the world, and then Aunt May dies, and he starts questioning everything. He's going to find Captain America, and in the sewers, he's confronted by three villains. I think Hobgobbler's one of them, and a few other like little low level ones, but they're really beating the mess out of Spider-Man. And then out of nowhere, all three of their heads explode, and it's Punisher.
Dude, he's
Just murdered them. And he picks up Spider-Man and he's carrying him through the sewers. And Spider-Man is unconscious and he's bleeding and he's torn apart. And he takes him to Captain America and he lays him down on the table. And Captain America beats the mess out of Punisher. And Punisher never lifts a hand. And in Captain America, this is one of the times you only see Captain America lose it. But he literally is screaming at Punisher, like, fight me. And he's like, I'll never fight you, Cap. And he's like, his moral compass may be flawed in how he executes, but like he's not gonna fight the good guys no matter what, and he's just awesome. It is just awesome.
Really, yeah. I'm very surprised. I did not expect to hear that high on your list. I knew you're a fan of him, but I'm excited. All right, you got me really excited to hear your number one because this list has already been surprising to me. I feel like you don't talk about Wolverine a whole lot, and maybe that's just because there's not really been a whole lot to talk about him or a reason to bring him up. So that makes sense. Did not expect to hear Punisher at all at number two. But all right, we're down to the number one slot. Let's hear it. Who's your number one?
Number one's super vanilla, and probably won't be too surprising to those that know me, but it's definitely Iron Man. Iron Man is my favorite, and I know it's a little bit vanilla, but man, the guy who started it all, RDJ. Casting for it. He's solid in the comics. He's solid in the movies, and it's also an engineer, right? So for those of you who don't know, I'm an engineer. I love to think and create, and to see somebody who like thinks through their problems and creates something to solve them, being a superhero, and then being such a high caliber one with so many story arcs that revolve around him and his inner conflicts, even with himself. Like, he's a flawed human, but he's trying to do the best he can. He's not perfect, but he sees his mistakes. He grows from them. He is self-centered, but then he learns how to sacrifice everything time and time again. In every single Avengers movie, he makes the sacrifice play. Like, every single one.
Yeah.
He takes that atomic bomb to space, sacrifice play. He is willing to explode the vibranium core in Avengers, Age of Ultron, thinking he's going to die, sacrifice play.
Yep.
Gets on the ship to go fight Thanos on his planet, sacrifice play. Willing to fight to die there. And then he is the ultimate one who takes the ultimate sacrifice, snapping the fingers and finishing the greatest movie franchise of all time, with Infinity War. So it's got to be number one for me.
Well, I'm a huge Iron Man fan. I love that you brought up the whole willing to make the sacrifice play, because what's Captain America's whole argument with Iron Man? He's not willing to do the sacrifice play.
He'll never make the sacrifice play.
Yep, he'll never make the sacrifice play, and Iron Man does it every single time. It's like a spit in the face at Captain America, and for someone that's not a big Captain America fan, I loved it. Loved every time Captain America was proved wrong. Like, I would be happy with a show that literally was just proving Captain America wrong.
Oh my goodness.
I don't like him at all. I hate the goody two shoes thing. I hate the whole, loyal to. I hate it. Like, give me some conflict. Give me some, hard decisions that you have to make. So I'm excited with Iron Man at number one. I don't think you can go wrong with that one. So that's a great list. But
yeah,
one thing that it really does excite me about, you talked about Civil War a lot with a lot of your decisions and why you made these decisions and things. Really excited because my next question, that was the only question, by the way, that you knew I was going to ask you. I did give you time to prep for that one.
It's too big of a question to pop off,
Yeah. I know there's some thought that has to go into this one. And this next one, maybe it does take some thought. I don't think it'll take thought for you because I think you know plenty of what your stance is on this one. But you talked a lot about Civil War. My next question I have written down here actually is, are you Team Cap or Team Iron Man?
Ooh. Okay, so I'm Team Cap for the
oh my goodness.
I'm Team Cap for the reason why I'm Team Iron Man for the characters. I just, I'm not a big government boy. I don't think that they should. I mean, I know this is a podcast show, but the conflict in Israel right now, Hamas did an atrocious terrorist attack, and the UN just didn't back Israel today. They said, "Hey, nah, that was fine. That was no big deal. They killed 40 plus American citizens and 1,400 Israelis, and it wasn't a terrorist attack." So that's the kind of stuff that like Cap is like, "Hey, I understand that you think this is a good system, but it's not, and it never is." You see it in Captain America: Civil War, in Winter Soldier. The government's flawed. You see it in Civil War. The government's flawed. You see it in Avengers. The first Avengers, they were going to nuke the city. They were going to nuke the city if they had the choice. They were going to say, nope, get your Avengers out of there. The city's lost. We're going to kill everyone. And so, like, I believe that when you give power away from the everyday citizen, and especially for superheroes, man, they didn't choose this. You think of Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. That's on you. It's not on the government to tell you to have great responsibility, because once they tell you to have great responsibility, you don't have good responsibility. Like, it takes away the hero aspect and also gives your power to someone else that can't abuse it. And so I'm definitely not team Iron Man's philosophy, but I do like him better.
Well, see, I hate Captain America so much that's one of the reasons why I choose Iron Man. It's because I can't stand him. But I mean, they both do have points, because you can hear the whole side.
Yeah,
they do need to have some responsibility, and the way Captain America was wanting to run it is he shouldn't be responsible to anybody. He should be able to just do what he sees as best, what he thinks is right. which obviously that's not
Hmm.
always good. Sometimes what you think is right isn't what's actually the best thing for, everybody.
Well, I think his point in that was to, hey, I'll deal with the consequences, but you can't tell me when and when not to act. Like, hey, if I act and it's wrong, then I'll deal with the consequences. But I'm not gonna sit here around and wait for you to tell me to act.
Yeah, 100%. But you also, at the same time, what if something does need to be done and he doesn't want to? That's kind of where you can kind of see the whole, the
Yeah,
big
well, what if they're
conflict.
terrible? What if?
Exactly. So there's always the back and forth, which is why I think Civil War is so good, is
Oh, it is.
because the movie is one of my top. It's probably top three for me. Love Civil War.
Yeah,
Um,
I do. Man, Civil War. Where did it fall on my list? Because I literally just finished the MCU last night, my rewatch, and I ranked them as I went through them. And Civil War was fifth.
yeah, I mean that's a
So,
great ranking. I mean,
um,
you can't really argue with it because it's that good.
yeah. I mean, I really, man, and on rewatch, it's better than I remembered. Like, and
It's
and
just
like
so
I
good.
had it like in my like I had it high. Like I thought it was high.
The
So,
one thing every time I watch Civil War always frustrates me is because in the comics, Team Iron Man is stacked. He has, I feel like, probably the strongest people on his side. Um, in some of the cartoons where they've done some of the Civil War stuff, I feel like Iron Man's team is always stacked. I feel like his team in the movie was not very stacked. I feel like he had a
oh
lot
yeah.
more of the smaller group of people.
Well, he did have Vision and
Boy,
Spider-Man
but I
and
feel like
Black Panther.
That Spider-Man, or Spider-Man was just he was so young.
That Spider-Man that caught Winter
Oh no,
Soldier's
I'm not saying
arm.
he's not strong. I'm just saying his combat awareness and skill was not there yet.
He took down Winter Soldier and
That
Falcon
I'm
by
Oh, that's what I'm
himself.
saying. He would have been. That's what I'm saying. If we say it's Spider-Man now, like this version of Tom Holland, oh, he probably mops that whole side.
Okay, I
But
got you.
you get what I'm saying. He's just not where he should be. He should be able to
Yeah.
take out Winter Soldier. I mean, he's that much stronger. So, but I digress. Um, happy. I mean, you got to give me one answer though. If you're in the situation, you're a superhero. I'm
Oh, I'm
assuming
going
you're
Team
going
Cap.
Team Cap. Yep.
Team Cap.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Hawkeye in it.
All right. So, last question I have for you. I have one more question. This will be fun for me because it's probably the two. I'm just gonna go ahead and say biggest villains we've seen in both of our
Ooh.
favorite shows or franchises. Where yours is Marvel minus Star Wars. Who is a better villain, Darth
Oh
Vader
no.
or Thanos?
Oh no.
And probably already know my answer. I think Darth Vader is the greatest villain ever. There's nothing
Yeah.
like when he walks into a room, it's like chills. He just demands respect.
So I would say, man, as far as overall villain, um, in every like form of media, it's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Darth Vader's top tier in every list for villains. Thanos is there too, but Thanos does have some weak points. Like when he tried to he got arrested by NYPD after flying his Thanos copter. Like Thanos didn't have a good start in the comics.
Yeah.
Like yes, I think he was the perfect villain in Infinity War and Endgame. Like I thought man, I don't think you can top him for those movies. But man, you talk about hallway scenes. Man, Rogue One, when you see
Oh,
Darth Vader open that door and those guys just screaming and running away from him, literally just tearing them apart. Yeah, I mean, that's the epitome of a villain. You play
well,
Star
and
Wars Fallen Order, and Cal Kestis, this pretty powerful Jedi by the end of the game, literally is left just to run.
yeah,
And that's all he can do. And he's just if you try to fight him, you die. And that's
yep.
realistic. I mean, he killed every single youngling in that room by hand. Like
Oh, and
that
let's not even talk about. There was other Jedi masters in that,
in that
in the
temple.
temple that he
Yeah.
massacred. You
Well,
see
so
it. We see in the scene. Apparently, I wish this didn't. They cut it from the movie because George Lucas didn't want it to be so gruesome. There are deleted scenes that no one's seen before. George Lucas has testified to this. They did do scenes of Anakin going through the temple, messing everybody up, and we get to see a little bit of that in the hologram
oh
of when Obi-Wan's.
oh
He's like,
yeah,
I
when
have
he's
to see who
showing
it
it.
is.
Yep.
He's just holding people. He's fighting people with basically one hand. I mean,
Yep.
he's holding people with his other hand while he's that strong.
Yeah,
So
and Anakin and getting to know Anakin and watching his development and through the Clone Wars and seeing his Ahsoka, and then even like with Ahsoka, seeing Anakin and his flashbacks and turning, and then Rebels. Oh man, when you see Rebels, when his face slash, I'm not gonna leave you this time, then you will die. And then same
yeah,
thing with Obi-Wan when he fought. The only good part about the Obi-Wan show was Darth Vader in every scene he was in. So man, yeah, I just I gotta say Darth Vader on this one. Even though I like Marvel better, Darth Vader is definitely takes the cake for top. And as you said, you're on the same page.
yeah. It's just I don't think there's a villain in anything better than Darth Vader personally. Obviously, a lot of that is playing to the fact that I think Star Wars is my favorite thing.
Yeah.
But I just every time I think of villains, he is the first person that comes to my mind is Darth Vader. And just
Oh,
his
well,
story. It's just a great you get to see his fall, you get to see him kind of rise back up. So just overall, probably one of the best characters really in anything ever too. If we're just
well, I mean,
talking,
I think Star Wars is one of the best franchises of all time.
yeah,
So I mean, and he is the crux of it.
yeah,
He is the story. It's his
yeah.
story.
It's all about Anakin, Darth Vader, the Skywalker. Um, but
Yeah, even
hopefully,
when Ray
yeah, we don't talk about that, and hopefully they figure out
Ray
a way to fix all that.
Skywalker.
Hopefully we're gonna find a way to fix that, right, Dave Filoni? I
That's
know
right. That's
you're
right.
out there listening to this. You better be working on something. I know that pin's on fire, so it better be fixing this whole Skywalker thing because, whew. But hopefully those questions helped you guys that listen to the podcast kind of in a fun way get to understand who we are and what we enjoy a little bit more. You kind of get to see a little bit of like what we look for in characters. You really got to hear some of Zane's top three and why he picked them. You got to see some little bit more political kind of side of things with how we think of how characters should be and how they should be, handled and governed in a way with the Civil War question. And then we just got a fun villain question. So hopefully those are going to be some ways that we are able to show you guys what we look for in shows and characters and all that type of thing. One thing you guys are probably going to start to notice as we continue to do this podcast, we're going to take turns kind of leading the show. If you guys notice, my questions were this week. Those are the ones I came up with. Next week, Zane will be leading the show, so I'm sure he will have some fun questions for me. Zane, is there anything I'm going to need to prep for next week that you know of yet? Are you still
Oh,
thinking of some questions?
so we have been mainly Star Wars and MCU based, and this
Yeah,
podcast will really be anything we want to talk about.
100%.
So next week we're gonna get to hear Jacob's top 5 car movies.
Oh, okay.
So I recently had a discussion with a coworker about top 10 franchises of all time, and we got some hot takes from my two coworkers. So I want to hear Jacob's top 5, and I may even bring my top 5 as well if you wanna know. So but yeah, so top 5 car movies next week, and we're not just Marvel, not just Star Wars. We'll talk about it all. So
Well, that's one thing, definitely a good point to bring up. When we started this podcast, we absolutely did not want it to be Marvel and Star Wars only. Just the way things have been lately, that's kind of been the big
yeah.
stuff we're really watching. We kind of started this podcast in literally one of the biggest Star Wars and Marvel seasons we've had in a long time with the
Oh
Ahsoka
yeah.
show, with Loki coming back. So that's kind of been why it has dominated. But we are big fans of really all entertainment and stuff like that. We play a lot of video games. We do a lot of other stuff. So there's going to be a whole lot more. Unfortunately, right now, we are kind of tied to the Marvel and Star Wars stuff,
Well, and
especially Marvel right now.
Invincible drops next Friday,
Yeah.
so he'll have to watch the entire first season. So he's ready for season 2, episode 1 next week, and I cannot wait for Invincible to start back up.
Well, how many episodes is season 1?
It's 8 episodes, man.
Okay, I'll right now. You guys are hearing it here first. I will get through. We will be able to talk about Invincible season 2. I will watch all of the first season of Invincible this week, so you guys have that to look forward to. Definitely going to want to hear Zane's top 5 car movies as well. That's going to be some fun stuff to talk about. Like I said, like he said, not tied to Marvel and Star Wars 100%. There's a lot of other great stuff that comes out that we watch and definitely enjoy. So, like I said, you guys heard it here first. This is my promise to you all. We are going to be doing the Invincible stuff as soon as it drops. I will catch up. Zane, is there anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrapped up this? Is there anything else the viewers could look forward to next week with you leading next week's show?
Oh no, we'll definitely have some other spicy questions, just to kind of get to know some of the surrounding topics. But we'll that's enough to give them the taste, and we'll let them tune back in, to find out the rest. So I'm looking forward to it though.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Like you guys, I hope you guys have been enjoying the podcast as much as we have been enjoying doing it. It's been really fun being able to sit down every week and talk for about an hour to an hour and a half about the stuff we really enjoy. Like I said, Zane has mentioned it in the past. There should be a spot in our description of our podcast and stuff like that. If you guys ever had some fan questions you wanted to reach out about, feel free to do so. We would love to answer some questions you guys might have, because those are some of the most fun times, is getting to see what you guys have. I know we've had one fan question before, and I thought that was really fun. But like I said, Zane, I'm sure you're going to do a great job getting everyone to know where to go to find us.
Absolutely. We'll have all those links and the description names in the bottom of the wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple Podcast, RSS feed, Amazon. We're everywhere. So send it to your non-Apple friends. If who does who doesn't listen on Apple Podcast.
I would be one of those because I'm a Spotify listener. So
yeah. Well.
But guys, that's going to do it for this episode, unless there is something else Zane wants to talk about. A big thanks to Zane, though. As you guys just heard a little bit, he is kind of the whole engine behind everything that goes on with the podcast. I kind of just show up and talk. So thank you to him for always putting everything together and having everything working so great. He's the one that records the podcast. He's the ones that get them uploaded. Hopefully in the future, we're going to start doing some video stuff. I know it's something that we've talked about. We've been doing a few episodes. I definitely think within the next few, I think that could be something we could work out.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're trying to get our bearings about us at first, but I feel like we've kind of got to a good spot. So you guys might be able to see some video stuff here coming up shortly. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys so much for listening as always, and we can't wait to see you next week.